Mike and Virginia Chevalier are not only diehard Broncos fans, but they are amazing at what they do. They're a husband and wife team with over 15 years of financial services experience, and you can visit them at DNVRmortgage.com to enter to win a free DNVR shirt or hat of your choice, but more importantly, to get set up for a free consultation to discuss all of your options when it comes to your mortgage. You can visit them at DNVRmortgage.com and find out what is the best situation for you. Since your home is likely to be one of your largest assets and your mortgage your largest debt, they believe it's vital to consider your full financial picture when purchasing a home. This includes considering your long-term and short-term planning goals, your investments, and your tax situation. Mike and Virginia will work tirelessly to find the best loan for your situation. So visit them at DNVRmortgage.com to get entered to win a free DNVR shirt or hat, but more importantly, to get a free consultation to discuss all of your options. That's Michael Chevalier, NMLS number 1931006, and Virginia Chevalier, NMLS number 1910631. Let's jump into the show.
Number one for the one and only DNVR. Two goes out to Zach, Mace, RK, and the bar. Three for Mr. B in that old trophy case. Number four, we're still waiting for. Well, bring on the chase. Out on the field, a mile high, Broncos win is our desire. Couple with a breakfast crew and a friendly orange and blue to the bitter end. Come and join us at DNVR. We are DNVR.
We are DNVR indeed, and welcome into the DNVR Broncos podcast presented by MSU Denver Online. Check out msudenver.edu/online to scope out all they have to offer. 750 total classes, so whatever and wherever you want to be furthering your education, you can do it online with MSU Denver Online. We're talking rigorous and affordable programs taught by professors who bring the real world into the classroom. Check them out. Find out all they have to offer and further that education with MSU Denver.
My boys, what's up? Happy Wednesday and a special happy Veterans Day. Thank you to all of the veterans out there. I know we have a lot in this community, so from the bottom of our hearts, thank you all so much for what you do to allow us to be able to do this silly podcast.
Amen. Amen. Thank you for that, Zach. And thank you to all the veterans. We have a ton in this community and we appreciate them. And of course, all over the country and all over the world, we appreciate all the veterans. A lot of interesting things going on in Broncos country. I think we should start with the news here of the day, which is that Shelby Harris unfortunately tested positive for COVID-19, which is a huge bummer for the Broncos. Means they almost positively will not have him this Sunday. And on the bright side of things, it means they did play it right with him having a close contact last week. So it looks like they were able to just, nip that at the bud. But unfortunately, going to be another tough week for the defensive line.
Yeah, almost certainly out this week, and then it becomes touch and go for next week. Of course, he's got to have negative tests. He's got to show no symptoms. He's got to go through all that. But the unfortunate thing is that you got to this game, and first of all, we hope Shelby Harris is okay. We hope he does fine and gets through this with flying colors. But we get to this game, and part of the hope for Sunday, guys, was that you were at least going to have Shelby back and then have your cornerback core back to optimal health. You will hopefully have a full tilt cornerback core if you get Bryce Callahan and A.J. Boye back, but we're going to be having some of the same conversations going into this game that we did going into the last game as far as how the Broncos can be shorthanded in terms of the interior pass rush and against the run against a significantly more formidable running game led by Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, unfortunately, against the Falcons was where you really needed the cornerbacks, and you didn't have them. So the backup defensive line did a pretty good job holding the Falcons under 100 rushing yards. Of course, they had whatever they wanted through the air. Now, this week is kind of when you'd prefer to have Jarrell Casey, Mike Purcell, Shelby Harris back as opposed to the cornerbacks. But we know two of those guys aren't coming back this year. And now we also know that Shelby Harris won't be coming through. So, I mean, second string defensive line. But like you said, Ryan, the positive is, if Shelby didn't report the close contact last week, and the virus spread within the building and spread within his position group, it's not crazy to say that the Broncos will be playing with third string defensive line this week, which is just absolutely, at best. I mean, they could be, you know what? We were talking about this before the show. They could be playing with people that they just signed right now. But Ryan, even that may not have been the case because of the COVID protocols. They wouldn't have been able to get in the building in time. So, I mean, I don't know. Offensive
We'd be talking
linemen?
week 18.
Yeah, that just would have been crazy. Alexander Johnson playing nose tackle for you. So that is the silver lining here. But for a second straight week, backup defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's tough. Real quick, before we go too far, we are having a competition at DNVR. We are going head-to-head with all of the other beats, and this is super important to us because we have never once lost one of these competitions. What you do to help us is go to thednvr.com, go to the Become a Member page, and when you sign up, use the code DNVR, get yourself a annual membership to DNVR, and use the code Broncos when you do, so we can beat all of these other beats who think they have a chance against us, and we can remain undefeated. When you sign up and you use that code Broncos, you're not only going to get a free shirt of your choice, which we have a ton of awesome shirts. You're also going to get a free mask, which is going to be coming handy for you, and you're going to get a free sticker pack. So check out all of the options there. But yes, use the code Broncos when you sign up and help us win this thing. We just have to stay undefeated. It's not an option.
Man, you get 3 free things plus our awesome coverage for an entire year. So, man, we would be thrilled if you join. And when you do, go to thednvr.com, the podcast tab at the top. Click on the first podcast there. Scroll to the bottom. A comment section will pop up. And that's where you can leave your comments, introduce yourself to the family, and then also get all of your questions asked on the pod.
And, I mean, they just keep going. And when you go to the DNVR bar, you're going to get member-sized beers. You'll get in on the members deal of the week. You get the point. Just go, sign up, use code Broncos, help us out. Let's get this dub. Okay. The headline of this show, would you take Derek Carr's career for Drew Lock right now? And I expected this, guys, but I already have people in my mentions on Twitter losing their minds over this. So let's have a conversation about it. I guess, even just posing the question is enough to get people riled up. Derek Carr, I believe, is a 3-time Pro Bowler, but he has never won a playoff game. Never won a playoff game. And when you look at it that simply, the answer is no. You wouldn't take Derek Carr's career for Drew Lock. But one thing that I think is really important to note about Derek Carr is that he's still getting better. And that is something that I think some people that think Drew Lock is already a lost cause and a waste of time and a waste of resources for the Broncos will be just shocked to find out Derek Carr is better this year than he was last year. He's still improving. And so while from a success standpoint, when you look at it on paper, it's just not good. It's not enough. But I think Derek Carr is an interesting case study on what it means to have a franchise quarterback in the NFL, because I think people in the Raiders organization would tell you that they think Derek Carr is a franchise quarterback.
And he's made it through multiple different regimes there in Las Vegas now. So that tells you something too. And another thing with Derek Carr and Drew Lock, both second-round picks. And Derek Carr may be a great example of what a successful second-round pick quarterback looks like, because Andy Dalton, the Bengals moved on from him. So Derek Carr may be the best one to point to. And also, the starts of their career are similar in terms of statistics. Derek Carr was not a winning quarterback, so Drew Lock at least has that on him through the first few games. His rookie year, though, he finished with a passer rating of 76. Not very good. However, he did have 21 touchdowns to 12 interceptions, but Drew Lock isn't much better in terms of that passer rating through the first full year of his NFL. He's at 80 passer rating. So you say, okay, there's some similarities there. And then 2 years later, though, in his third season, while Derek Carr wasn't able to win a playoff game, it's because he got hurt. He was on track to have the Raiders be the number 1 seed in the AFC West. They were 12-3, and he was on an MVP type of season himself, 28 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Now, I think the thing with Derek Carr, and when you say his name, people think Raiders, and they think just no sex appeal to him at all. You know, besides the
I like the eyeliner.
Yeah, exactly. Besides that, you know, he's Mr. Dink and Dunk, especially the last few years. And he doesn't really have the winning behind him, especially the playoff winning. So people say, no. When you dive into the numbers, he's not, you know, MVP every single year, but he's a franchise quarterback.
He's a franchise quarterback, and the thing is also, he's not simply a product of John Gruden. Now, it's helped having John Gruden around, and that was when kind of the second bump in his numbers hit. If you look at completion percentage, when John Gruden shows up and they start kind of focusing on dinking and dunking at first because they didn't have any vertical targets in that 2018 season, he goes up to 68.9. But you remember, like, the games that the Broncos play against the Raiders that year, especially an early season game, week 2, remember, Derek Carr was just completing a bunch of passes, but they were all within like 10 yards of the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
So that number, it's a little bit inflated, but now 3 years in to the time with John Gruden, we're seeing what Derek Carr starts to look like with some vertical threats, with Henry Ruggs able to provide some vertical speed downfield. And the thing is, because he had that 2016 season that you referenced, Zach, it probably compelled the Raiders to stick with him a little longer than maybe a lot of their fans would have wanted to, because he did already have that skin on the wall, so to speak. He already had a terrific season. And frankly, if he doesn't have that injury in week 16 of that year, we're not sitting here talking about Derek Carr having no playoff wins to this point. The Raiders probably would have gone in and beaten the Brock Osweiler-led Texans if they'd had to go and play that wild card game down in Houston and done it with Derek Carr. Instead, that was the Connor Cook game, right? Because Matt McGloin got hurt and then Connor Cook came in. So the question is, do you take the overall resume of Derek Carr? I mean, you could also say this with Matthew Stafford as well. Would you take Matthew Stafford? Because Stafford, even though he's not a second-round pick like Carr or Drew Lock, certainly there were some inconsistencies. And one of the comps that we heard about Drew Lock going into the 2019 draft was Matthew Stafford. So would you take either of these careers? And even though the team success isn't there, you'd have to take the individual record, and then you just hope that the team is better around Drew Lock than it has been around these two quarterbacks.
Yeah, so when you just look at the winning and you look at the success, it's like an easy no.
Right.
But when you look at the numbers, it's an easy yes. 65% completions. Of course, you'll take that. And actually, under John Gruden, he's flirted with 70% completions every year. About 4,000 yards a year, a little under it for his average right now, although he's going to be on for his third straight year with 4,000 yards with Gruden. And then touchdown to interception is 159 touchdowns to 64 interceptions. So if you could take the accuracy and you could take the reading of the field and you could take the decision making of Derek Carr and put that into Drew Lock's body, well, of course you would take it because Drew Lock has a little bit of a better arm, a little bit more athletic. So, it's not as simple as just saying, well, the Raiders don't win, I wouldn't take Derek Carr. You put Derek Carr on, a proud franchise like the Steelers or the Ravens or, one of these teams that, constantly has a good defense and puts good weapons around their quarterback, then you take it. You would. The hard thing to quantify here is just the success, which he hasn't had. But like we said, the 1 year that he had the best chance at success, he wasn't able to capitalize and see the fruits of that labor. With that being said, you still would hope if your franchise quarterback is there, he's going to get you or to or very close to the playoffs every year, and that just hasn't happened. But it's not that, when you look at the numbers, it's really hard to put that squarely on Derek Carr's shoulders.
Well, the other thing with Carr is I certainly hope if Drew Lock is the guy that the Broncos aren't doing a teardown 4 seasons into his career. And that's what happened with the Raiders. After they had that disappointing 2017 season and they move on from Jack Del Rio and his staff and move on to John Gruden, hand Gruden that 10-year contract. Well, that was a license for Gruden to clear cut almost the entire roster. Really says a lot about Carr that he's one of the few guys that's left standing for when John Gruden walked in that building.
Yeah,
and 3 years into it. I mean,
Yeah.
It seemed like every single year, everyone outside of Oakland then and now Las Vegas was saying, okay, well, this is their path to go get Tua, to go get Trevor, to go get Drew Lock. A couple of years ago, everyone thought the Raiders were really interested in him. And so that does speak volumes. And guys, the conversation here with Derek Carr is, would you take a Patrick Mahomes career? Absolutely. Would you take Tom Brady's career right now for Drew Lock? Absolutely. Those are guys that can put teams on their back no matter how good or bad and just carry them to the playoffs, carry them deep into the playoffs every single year. But the reality is there's only a handful of those type of quarterbacks. And the reality is Drew Lock may not be one of those guys, and it doesn't mean he's a bust. And so when we talk about him at the end of the year saying, is he the guy or not? It doesn't necessarily mean he's Patrick Mahomes or you're moving on from him. There's so much middle ground, and this Derek Carr is kind of that middle ground. And Derek Carr, when you just take his career, you don't take the Oakland Raiders career with him, you just take his career. What is this team in the next 5 years if Drew Lock plays the way that Derek Carr has played throughout his 5 years?
Yeah, it's a tough conversation to have because you don't really want to land in the middle ground. And if you do, then you're relying on a bunch of other factors to get you far and get you a championship. And some teams can pull it off. I'm trying to think who was like the last team to win a championship with a Derek Carr level quarterback, because Carr is better than like the Trent Dilfer, Brad Johnson mold.
Are we counting Philly with Nick Foles coming in for Carson Wentz at the end of that year?
Yeah.
Nick Foles. I mean, before he got hurt,
go.
maybe Derek Carr was or I'm sorry, not Nick Foles, but Carson Wentz. Yeah, there you go.
And even, you look at Carson Wentz so far in his career, Derek Carr's numbers are better than his. I think a lot of people look at, the Derek Carr conversation is just difficult to have because of QB wins, which I support in a lot of scenarios. I think the quarterback is oftentimes the main factor in whether a team wins or loses. But in this scenario, it's just he's on a garbage franchise.
Okay.
So if you put these type of numbers in the Broncos quarterback position, I mean, look at this year and all the Broncos fans who, are thumbing their nose at Derek Carr right now might be in for a tough weekend because Derek Carr has an 8-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio this year.
Yeah. He has 8-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, and against a defense that's going to play some zones. One thing that Derek Carr does very well is just take what's there. So if what's there is the 5-yard dig underneath, he'll take that all day. He'll say thank you and go on. I think just as interesting a question, though, guys, about whether you take Derek Carr's career is, what you take in terms of team accomplishments. And that's why I think Derek Carr is a fascinating comp from an individual level. The Atlanta Falcons with Matt Ryan are a good comp from a team level because, like the Broncos, they're sitting there in a division where it looks like there's an all-timer at quarterback in the AFC West with Mahomes. Well, the Falcons have been dealing with their own all-timer in the NFC South in Drew Brees with the Saints. And Brees and Sean Payton have been together. And yet, since Matt Ryan came into the league, this is going to be year 13 for him. They've been to the playoffs 6 times. They've gone to the conference championship twice, went to a Super Bowl, and Matt Ryan was a 4-time Pro Bowler, and one exceptional year was a league MVP. So the question is, would you take that sort of outcome in a scenario where you are staring down the barrel of an all-timer at quarterback with your arch rival?
What's crazy is, like, if you just change one little thing and Kyle Shanahan just calls a better half in the second half of the Super Bowl, it's an easy answer. You obviously take Matt Ryan's career.
Right.
Playoffs about half the time, two trips to the conference championship game, 1 trip to the Super Bowl, and a trophy. Like, you just take that. It's obvious. It's clear. But without it, it just becomes a little tougher. And that's why, these conversations are so interesting with quarterbacks, and, people want to take away quarterback wins. It's not Matt Ryan's fault that they didn't, not all Matt Ryan's fault that they didn't get the job done in that Super Bowl, but because they didn't get it done, it's hard to say that's what you want. Now, when you've had 4 straight losing seasons, trending towards 5, that's just where we are halfway through the season. That's Super Bowl or not, it sounds a lot better than where you are.
Yeah. It absolutely does. So, guys, for this year, in Derek Carr's rookie season, and in the 16 games he played, he threw 21 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Right now, 11 games through Drew Lock's career, he's at 13 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. So if he finished with Derek Carr's numbers in the next 5 games, because that would be his first 16 games in the league, he would finish these next few games with 8 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. Do you take that right now?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you absolutely do, because Drew Lock had 7 touchdowns to 3 interceptions to end last year in that 5-game stretch. And what was everyone saying? I mean, I thought that was really good, especially including the 4-1 record. That'll give the Broncos a chance in nearly every single game, unless one of the next 5 games he goes no touchdowns and 3 interceptions, probably losing that game. But then if he's going 8 touchdowns and no interceptions in the other 4 games, Broncos could go 4-0 in those games.
The question is, though, what if the production remains imbalanced in terms of when it's happening? Like, what if Drew Lock remains kind of a 4th quarter late game wizard, but the first half, most of the first 3rd quarter, it's still not there?
Yeah, you don't want to see that. But if you're winning, that's what these conversations come down to, because you can't tell me that Drew Lock put up all of his stats in garbage time against the Chargers when the Broncos came away with a W. Like, there's no such thing as garbage time when you won the game. When you go back and look at the Falcons game, the Falcons really didn't change their defense in the 4th quarter. So it wasn't, it's easy to just say, oh, they were playing prevent. No, they weren't. They were still playing single high safety, which is why the Broncos hit a couple deep balls on them during that time. Now there might be like an inherent, thought within the corner, which is like try and keep things in front of me. But again, Drew Lock was hitting deep balls in the 4th quarter. So it wasn't like they were just trying to take away the over-the-top stuff and he's just hitting underneath. They were still playing the same press coverage they played the entire game in the 4th quarter. So it's not just garbage time. If the Broncos are, getting blown out 31-3 and they score 3 touchdowns and still never get back into it, well, then, that was garbage time. And you can look at the way the defense was playing and probably say, okay, they were allowing everything underneath and Drew Lock got hot that way. But if they're winning and it's slow for the first 3 quarters and it hits in the 4th quarter, it's going to be a confusing conversation, but you'll take it.
Yeah, the Falcons game is a little more confusing in certain terms of the coverages, because the thing with the Chargers, it was so simple. It was rush 4, drop 7, and drop them 10 yards back. Atlanta didn't do that. Now, you saw more cushions from the cornerbacks. They were dropping back more often. You were seeing kind of an 8 to 10 yard cushion at the start of the play more often in the fourth quarter than you did. And the other thing is the Falcons, they were more creative in their rushes. They were still using some A-gap blitzes and dropping their defensive ends in the fourth quarter, something that the Chargers weren't doing. But like you said, on the play to Jerry Jeudy, they're playing that straight up, and he still makes the catch downfield for 40+ yards, getting the Broncos into scoring range.
And that play is like, it's everything that you love about Drew Lock. And just a few plays before that was the interception, which was everything that you hate about Drew Lock. The funny thing is there's similar plays. It's just one pass didn't work out. Drew Lock throwing that fade ball to Jerry Jeudy up the sideline. He's flat-footed, falling backwards, and drops it in there perfectly for Jerry Jeudy, who also, the little nuances that Jerry Jeudy is adding to his route running is incredible. He's already such a great route runner, and now he's adding things that like 10-year veterans do. Like on that play, he sells the back shoulder throw. You see him kind of look back like he's going to turn around for the back shoulder throw, which causes the corner to slow down a little bit, and then that's when Jerry accelerates. Just the little nuances are incredible. But look, Drew Lock throws that flat-footed off his back foot and drops a dime, sidearm, all that stuff. He did the exact same thing a few plays earlier, and people are losing their mind over it. It's kind of the conundrum with Drew Lock is he's capable of making those throws, which is why he wants to try them.
Yeah, and isn't that what you expect from a young gunslinger, is the guy to show the flashes, but then he's also going to make mistakes. And he admits that, about in a basketball analogy, that if you miss threes, you make mistakes on the field, you're just going to keep shooting. So that's something that not just this year, but over the years, Broncos fans are just going to have to live with. He's going to have the flash plays that are top 10 plays. And he's also going to have those decisions where everyone is saying, what in the world was he doing?
The thing is, you just have to live with it. If you want Drew Lock, if you're going to have him, you have to live with the wide variance, because when he leans on his arm talent, sometimes he's going to hit a throw like he did to Jerry Jeudy, and sometimes he's going to miss wildly under pressure. That's just you have to hope that when he misses wildly, he's missing to where nobody's getting under it and picking it off. You're hoping it's just an incompletion that allows you to move on to the next play. And then, again, on that play, I know he says he'd throw to Jerry Jeudy 10 times out of 10, but when the guy is in his face like that, that's where you just got to learn, throw to the sideline, go on to the next snap.
Also, a big difference between the two throws to Jerry Jeudy is there was places to miss in the throw up the sideline. If you throw that ball over Jerry Jeudy's head, it just goes out of bounds. When you're throwing that pass over the middle, it goes right to the safety when it goes over Jerry Jeudy's head. So that's another thing that Drew needs to keep in mind. You hope that you see more of the up the sideline throw and less of the over the middle throw. But some of that also comes down to his offensive line, helping him out, protecting him a little bit. People want him to step up in the pocket. I promise you, if you go back and watch the All-22 tape, show me the pockets you want him to step up into, because they don't exist. And when they do, he actually does step up in them. It's just few and far between. His only route is out when the inside of the pocket is collapsing. So there's a lot at play there. It's going to be interesting. We'll obviously talk a lot more about this game specifically and the matchups that face the Broncos and how difficult it's going to be to slow down Derek Carr, as crazy as that sounds to a lot of people who think he sucks. Because he really doesn't, and he's really awesome this year, actually. So we'll talk about that more as the week goes on. If you're watching on YouTube, we'd love if you hit us with a thumbs up on the video, hit us with a subscribe to the page, maybe even sign up for the alerts for when we go live and when we drop new videos from the YouTube page. But we're going to go catch a press conference, and then we'll be finishing up the podcast side and getting the questions from all the subscribers on the other side of that. Of course, if you want to be one of those people, one of those subscribers who gets to ask questions, sign up, use the code Broncos when you do, and get a free shirt, a free mask, a free sticker pack, and all of our content for a whole year. Check it out. We appreciate you. But for today on the live side of things, that wraps us up.